Welcome to Heartbreak Chronicles. He stood silently in front of his apartment window, his eyes gazing out at the Boston night scene, the ice from the whiskey in his hand making a soft, clinking sound in the glass. Daniel didn't know how many drinks it was his first of the night, but he knew that no matter how many he drank, the searing pain couldn't erase the words he'd heard around the kitchen table. "I don't love you anymore. Let's get a divorce." His wife, Emma, just said it calmly, as if discussing tomorrow's weather. 12 years of marriage, all those promises, all those days and nights spent together, were just gently erased by a single word. Daniel felt a wave of vertigo, but he chose to remain silent before replying in the same calm tone. "With pleasure." He saw a flash of surprise and confusion on Emma's face. She obviously hadn't expected him to take it so easily. Maybe she expected him to beg, to argue, to try to save the marriage. But he didn't. For the first time in 12 years, he saw his wife speechless. That was 3 weeks ago. For 3 weeks, Daniel has been thinking, looking back, and dissecting his marriage. He is an architect and is used to analyzing problems and finding solutions. And now he is analyzing the failure of his marriage, trying to understand how it went from good to what it looks like today. 3 months ago, Emma started traveling frequently. As a marketing manager, traveling on business is not uncommon, but the increased frequency caught Daniel's attention. Then there was the change in her attitude, coming home more distant, less communicative, less intimate. At first, Daniel thinks it's work stress, but when he notices all those messages on Emma's cell phone from unfamiliar numbers and those mysterious late-night phone calls, he begins to wonder if there's something else going on. When he tries to question Emma, she just explains perfunctorily that these are work-related connections. Daniel chose to believe her until that night. It was the week before Emma filed for divorce. Daniel forgets his briefcase, and when he comes home to retrieve it, he overhears Emma and a man talking intimately at a nearby cafe. The man Daniel knew, Jason, Emma's co-worker, a married man. Daniel didn't bother them, but left a cloud of doubt growing in his mind. In the days that followed, Daniel hired a private investigator. The evidence is quickly gathered. Emma and Jason have been having an affair for 6 months. Photographs, text message logs, hotel check-in records, all of it confirms Daniel's worst fears. However, when Emma files for divorce, Daniel does not expose her or question her infidelity. Instead, he calmly accepts, leaving Emma confused. "You really just agreed to that?" Emma asked, a mixture of surprise and skepticism in her eyes. "What's the point of forcing it if you don't love me anymore?" Daniel replied, without a hint of emotion in his voice. "I'll contact a lawyer to start preparing the paperwork." With that, they began their separation. Emma moves into the guest room, and the two live under the same roof like strangers. But Daniel has a plan in mind, a plan to make Emma pay for her betrayal. The first step is to make Emma think he's quickly coming to terms with reality and starting a new life. A week later, Daniel began updating his status on social media, posting photos of himself at various social events. He knew Emma would see it, even though she never admitted it. "I'll be back late tonight," Daniel informed Emma before he left work one day. "Having a little party with friends." Emma nodded, pretending not to care, but Daniel saw the doubt in her eyes. That night, Daniel did attend an event, but it wasn't just any friend's party. He contacted Lisa, a friend from college who is now a successful interior designer. They arranged to meet at a restaurant that Emma and he frequented. "So she did file for divorce?" Lisa asked, swirling her red wine glass in her hand. "Yes," Daniel replied, deliberately speaking loud enough for the nearby tables to hear. "She said she didn't love me anymore and that we should separate." "That's heartbreaking," Lisa said sympathetically. "How long have you been together?" 12 years, Daniel replied bitterly. But apparently it wasn't enough for her to cherish. Daniel knew word would get out. Boston's design and marketing circles are small, and it won't be long before someone tells Emma he's having dinner with a beautiful woman to talk about their divorce. For the next 2 weeks, Daniel continued his program. He started working out, updated his closet, and got a sleeker haircut. He looked better than ever, and none of it escaped Emma's notice. Whenever Emma asked about his plans or where he was going, Daniel would simply reply with a short, "Just going out to see friends." Then leave, leaving Emma home alone, imagining what he might be doing and who he might be with. Meanwhile, Daniel makes sure his social media feeds are filled with pictures of events and new friends, especially with various women. Lisa was a great help, introducing Daniel to her friends, all of whom were single and attractive women. Are you sure this is what you want? Lisa asked Daniel after a party. Does revenge really bring fulfillment? It's not just revenge, Daniel replied, his eyes firm. It's about dignity, about making her understand the consequences of her choices. In fact, Daniel did not develop a relationship with any of the women, although a few did express interest. His goal is not to find a new partner, but to show Emma that he can easily move on with his life without her. After 3 weeks, the program began to show results. Emma's behavior becomes increasingly anxious, frequently asking where Daniel is going and when he will return. She began to stay at home more often rather than go out to meet her colleagues. One night, when Daniel comes home late, he finds Emma waiting for him in the living room, her eyes red and swollen, obviously having cried. She was wearing the blue dress that used to be his favorite, and her hair was carefully groomed, an obvious gesture of goodwill. The scent of her carefully prepared dinner filled the air as Daniel opened the door and walked in. There were candles on the table, and the wine had been poured. She's trying to create a romantic atmosphere to win him back. Can we talk? She asked, her voice trembling, her eyes full of anticipation and fear. Daniel took off his jacket and sat expressionlessly on the couch across from her, completely ignoring the romantic scene she had so carefully set up. Talk about what? He asked coldly, purposely not looking at the candles and dinner. Emma said, then hesitated. I'm not sure divorce is the best option. There was pleading in her voice, her fingers intertwined nervously. Daniel raised an eyebrow, his voice cool and sarcastic. 3 weeks ago you seemed so sure. At that point, I don't love you anymore sounded pretty sure. I know, but I made a mistake. I was too hasty, said Emma, with tears in her eyes, as she leaned forward and tried to take Daniel's hand, but he quickly jerked it away. I think we should give the marriage another chance. Daniel was silent for a moment, then said, Why? There was not a trace of warmth in his tone. Emma looked stumped by the question. What? Why should we give this marriage another chance? Daniel repeated, his voice calm, but full of power and sarcasm. Is it because you suddenly fell in love with me all over again? Or is it because you see that I'm no longer the pathetic person who would give anything for you? Or is it because Jason has gone back to his wife and abandoned you? Emma's face changed, and there were more tears in her eyes. It's not like that, Daniel. I realized I still love you. Daniel smiled, but the smile didn't reach his eyes. It's funny how you see me with someone else, having a good time, and suddenly you remember that you love me. Are you dating another woman? Emma asked, jealousy evident in her voice. I'm living my life, just like you suggested, Daniel replied. And to be honest, I found it much easier than I thought it would be. Emma's tears finally fell. Daniel, please give us a chance. I know I hurt you, but I really want to salvage this relationship. Like you saved our marriage? By sleeping with Jason? Daniel said coldly. Emma's face turned instantly pale. You know, I've known for a long time, Daniel replied, pulling out his cell phone and flipping through a few pictures to show her. Private investigators aren't cheap these days, but they do come in handy. Emma looked at the pictures and was completely devastated. The photos clearly show her and Jason in various intimate scenes together. Why? Daniel asked, a hint of emotion finally creeping into his voice. What's 12 years of marriage to you? Emma tries to explain, speaking incoherently about the stress of work, the alienation from each other, and how she feels neglected and unappreciated. But Daniel just shook his head. You could have talked to me about these issues, Emma, but you chose to cheat, he said. Now, when your lover isn't so passionate anymore, or when you realize you might be losing the life we've built together, you suddenly want to get it all back. Jason and I are over, Emma argued. It was a mistake, I know, but I realize now that what I really want is you, our marriage. Daniel stood up and looked down at her. It's too late, Emma. You made a choice, and now you must face the consequences. Emma pleaded and cried, promising to change, to rebuild their trust. But Daniel has decided that he will not be lied to or hurt again. The divorce papers are ready, he said calmly. You can sign the papers at the law firm next week, and then we can officially end this. He turned to leave, but Emma grabbed his arm. Please don't, Daniel. I know I made a mistake, but I really love you. Give me a chance to prove it. Daniel looked at her with mixed emotions in his eyes. How he used to love this woman, used to be willing to do anything for her. But now, all he felt was a strange relief. You said you loved me, he said calmly. But love is not betrayal, not deception, not hurt. You don't know what love is, Emma. And me, I don't care anymore. He left the room, leaving Emma alone, drowning in tears of remorse and regret. Daniel went back to his bedroom, closed the door, and exhaled deeply. His plan for revenge is going better than expected, but he doesn't feel completely satisfied. There's more to do, more truths to uncover, more lessons to teach Emma. This is just the beginning. The next morning, Daniel woke up early to get ready for work. He found Emma already sitting in the kitchen, her eyes red and swollen, obviously having been up all night. Good morning, she said softly, attempting a smile. Daniel just nodded and poured himself a cup of coffee. I was thinking, Emma said carefully, that maybe we could go to a marriage counselor together? Give ourselves a chance. Daniel turned to face her with a calm expression on his face. Why? Because we used to love each other, Emma replied, a plea in her voice. We can get that feeling back again. Daniel smiled slightly, but it was cold and hollow. Do you really believe that? After your betrayal, after all the lies? I'd do anything to regain your trust, Emma said. Does that include telling everyone the truth? Daniel asked rhetorically. That includes telling your family, friends, and coworkers how you destroyed our marriage through an affair. Emma's face turned white. You want me to do that? No, Daniel said, eyes sharp. I don't need you to do that because I already did. He pulls out his cell phone and shows Emma a picture of Daniel and Emma's best friend Sarah having dinner together last night. Sarah knows? Emma asked in surprise, her voice quivering. She knows everything, Daniel replied calmly. And your sister Clara, your parents, most of our mutual friends. They all know about your affair with a married man and how you tried to blame it on our marital problems. Emma slumped in her chair, the blood draining from her face. How could you? How can that be? Daniel asked rhetorically, anger showing in his voice for the first time. You betrayed me, lied to me, tried to make me a sinner, and then asked me how I could? This is what happens, Emma. When you sow the seeds of lies, you must be prepared to face the harvest of truth. Emma started crying, but Daniel had no sympathy. Oh, and one more thing, he added. I got a text from Jason this morning. It looks like his wife knows about you guys too, and she's demanding that he end his relationship with you immediately or she'll take their kids and drain his wallet. Guess what choice he made? Emma's eyes widened, clearly understanding that Jason had chosen his family over her. Now you're alone, Emma, Daniel said, picking up his briefcase and preparing to leave. This is a result of your own choices. He left the apartment, the door slamming loudly in the morning silence. Over the next few days, Emma's world completely fell apart. She received messages of disappointment and condemnation from her family and friends, and her standing in her social circle was in tatters. Worst of all, Jason did cut off contact with her completely, openly avoiding her even in the office. Meanwhile, Daniel's life seems to be getting better and better. His social media feeds are filled with pictures of events and parties where he looks happy, confident, and energized. In particular, his friendship with Lisa seems to be deepening, with the two often appearing together at various events. A week later, Emma tries to talk to Daniel again. She waited in the living room when he came home from work, looking exhausted. Her eyes were deep-set, her hair was disheveled, she had lost a significant amount of weight, and her clothes appeared baggy. Her whole body looked like a frightened ghost, shapeless and with despair written all over her face. Can we talk? She asked, fear and unease in her voice. Daniel put down his briefcase and nodded coldly. Say it. What else do you have to say? I've lost everything, Emma said, her voice choked with tears that flowed uncontrollably. My friends, my family's respect, and even my job are on the line. No one talks to me anymore. Jason was spreading rumors around the office that I was pestering him, that I was a crazy ex, and management totally believed him. They're already talking about whether or not they're going to reorganize my department, which is a clear attempt to kick me out. Do you expect me to feel sorry? Daniel asked, his tone calm, a cold glint in his eyes. He lifted the glass of wine in his hand and sipped it slowly, completely unfazed by her tragic situation. Emma looked up at him with teary eyes, her face full of despair. I expect you to show at least some humanity. I know I hurt you. I know I made a terrible mistake, but you were systematically ruining my life. You exposed my infidelity to everyone. You destroyed my reputation, and you continue to dismantle every pillar of my life. Daniel sat down across from her, his eyes icy and a small, satisfied smile on his lips. No, Emma, I didn't ruin anything. I'm just exposing the truth. If the truth ruins your life, it can only mean one thing. You've built a castle of lies. Now this castle has collapsed and you are buried under the rubble. It's not my fault. It's entirely a consequence of your own choices. But why? Emma cried. Why can't you handle your divorce privately like most people do? Why do you want everyone to know? Because you made me the guilty one, Daniel replied, controlled anger in his voice. When you said you no longer loved me and asked for a divorce, you made everyone think it was my fault, that I was too busy, that I didn't care, that I didn't understand. You made me the loser, and you're the one who's brave enough to pursue happiness. But that's not the truth, Emma. The truth is you betrayed our marriage, our vows, everything we built together. And I'm not going to let you get away with that. Emma lowered her head as tears dripped down her hands. So what do we do now? We sign the divorce papers and go our separate ways, Daniel said. I've made arrangements to meet you tomorrow at 3 p.m. at the attorney's office. Don't be late. He stood up, ready to leave the room, but Emma's voice stopped him. Did you ever love me, Daniel? Daniel stopped and didn't turn around. I've loved the person I thought you were, Emma. That person never existed. He leaves the room, leaving Emma alone with the reality of her choices. The next day, they met at the lawyer's office. Emma looked like a completely different person, tired, haggard, with deep-set eyes. Dark circles under her eyes showed she hadn't slept well in days, and her hand trembled slightly as she signed. She mechanically signed the document without even arguing the terms of the property division, even though they were quite unfavorable to her. Daniel's attorney, a seasoned divorce professional, made sure the agreement was very favorable to Daniel. Emma almost lost the majority of their joint property, including the vacation home and most of their investments. Since Daniel has evidence of her infidelity, she has little room to negotiate. That's it, she asked after signing the last document, her voice hoarse and her eyes red. That's it, Daniel confirmed calmly, a triumphant smile on his face. We're done. Emma nodded, a final plea in her eyes. Are you sure we can't? Can't. Daniel interrupted her firmly. I've booked the movers for next week. You can stay in the apartment, as we agreed, but you will find the rent unaffordable without my income support. Good luck, Emma. You're going to need it. He held out his hand, a professional gesture rather than a personal one, as if he were closing an unpleasant deal with a business partner. Emma hesitated, then shook his hand, feeling the great distance between them. Goodbye, Daniel, she whispered, her voice almost pleading. Goodbye, Emma, he replied coldly, and left the room without a backward glance, leaving her standing there alone with the papers that had destroyed her life in her hands. Walking out of the lawyer's office, Daniel took a deep breath and felt a great sense of triumph. The first stage is complete, legal separation. Now it's time to execute the next phase of the revenge plan, the complete destruction of Emma's social and professional existence. 2 months later, Daniel moved completely into his new apartment and started his life over. He hears that Emma was forced to quit her job because the atmosphere in the office became unbearable. She moves back in with her parents and tries to rebuild her shattered life. 1 month later, Daniel received an email from Emma. The email was sent at 3 a.m. and was full of despair and loss. Daniel, I know you won't forgive me or respond to this email, but I have to say it. My life is completely ruined. I was fired from my company because of company image issues. No one would write me a letter of recommendation. My savings are almost depleted, and I can no longer afford the rent on my apartment. None of my friends responded to my messages anymore, and my family only occasionally inquired about my status out of obligation. Jason is now promoted at his company, while I'm hitting a brick wall in my job search. They seem to have heard of me at every interview. You know what that means. I never thought betrayal would have such terrible consequences. I thought the worst that could happen was just a divorce and separate lives. But you made me realize that some choices can completely destroy a person's entire life and future. I don't hate you. You have the right to do so. I just want you to know that your revenge has been successful, completely successful. I pay for my mistakes every day, and it looks like the punishment will last a lifetime. Emma. Daniel read the email, and a satisfied smile lifted the corners of his mouth. He clicked the forward button and sent the email to their circle of mutual friends, as well as a few of Emma's close family members. He added a brief comment. Looks like someone finally understands the price of betrayal. Then hit the send button. Yes, revenge is a dish to be savored slowly, and Daniel is enjoying every bite. Emma's anguish and despair only proved how successful his plan had been. Some betrayals are so complete that only an equally complete punishment can quell them. This is the harsh reality that Emma must accept, and this is the price she pays for her choices. Spring is creeping in, and the streets of Boston are beginning to take on a new life. It's also a new beginning for Daniel. It had been 3 months since the divorce had been officially finalized, and he felt a sense of peace and freedom that had been missing for a long time. His new apartment is on the other side of town from the memories of living with Emma. It's a whole new space filled with his own choices and style. No trace of the past, no shared photos, no Emma. It was just what he needed, a fresh start. During this time, Daniel immersed himself in his work. His architectural firm is going through a busy season with several large projects that require his full attention. Work became a haven for him to forget those painful memories for a while. One afternoon, Daniel was in his office reviewing design drawings for a new project when his assistant, Rachel, knocked on the door. "Daniel, you have a visitor," she said, her tone a little hesitant. "It's Emma." Daniel looked up, his expression unchanged. "What did she say she was coming for?" "She said she wanted to talk to you in person," Rachel replied. "She looks nervous." Daniel thinks for a moment, then nods. "Let her in. 5 minutes, no more." Rachel nodded and left, and a few seconds later, Emma walked into the office. She looked different from the last time we'd seen her. Her hair was cut shorter and more competent, but she still wore that look of unease and remorse on her face. "Thank you for wanting to see me," she said softly, standing in the doorway as if unsure if she should come in deeper. "Anything?" Daniel asked, his tone businesslike. Emma took a deep breath. "I'm moving to Chicago. I got a new job there, and I'm leaving next week." Daniel nodded, showing no particular emotion. "Good luck. Before I go, I want to apologize to you in person," Emma continued, her voice shaking slightly. "I know it won't make up for the damage I've done to you, but I need you to know that I'm truly sorry." Daniel put down the pen in his hand and leaned back in his chair. "You apologized. I heard you. Anything else?" A flicker of hurt flashed in Emma's eyes, but she quickly got herself under control. "I was just wondering how you were doing." "I'm fine," Daniel replied briefly. "Work is busy and life goes on." Emma hesitated, then asked, "You and Lisa?" "That's none of your business, Emma." Daniel interrupted her, his voice calm but firm. Emma nodded, tears in her eyes. "You're right. I hope you find happiness, Daniel. You deserve happiness." Daniel looked at her with complicated eyes. There was a time when this woman was the most important person in his life, and he would have done anything for her. Now she's just an aching memory, a symbol of betrayal. "I will find my happiness, Emma," he said at last. "But it won't be with you." Emma nodded, accepting the answer. "I understand. So this is goodbye." "Goodbye, Emma," Daniel said, picking up his pen again, signaling that the conversation was over. Emma hesitated for a moment, as if she wanted to say something, but in the end she just said goodbye softly and left the office. As the door closed, Daniel took a deep breath, trying to control his emotions. Though he's achieved revenge and seen Emma lose everything, her job, her friends, her social standing, even her life in the city, what he didn't anticipate was that revenge wouldn't taste as sweet as he thought it would. After work, Daniel decides to relax at a bar he frequents. It's quiet, cozy, and a great place to think. He sat at the bar and ordered a whiskey, lost in his own thoughts. "You look preoccupied," a voice interrupted his meditation. Daniel looks up and sees Mike the bartender looking at him. "Kind of," Daniel admitted. "The ex-wife came to see me and said she was moving to Chicago." Mike nodded and wiped his glass. "How does it feel?" Daniel thought about it. "To be honest, I'm not sure. I should have the satisfaction of seeing her pay for her behavior. But really, I only felt emptiness." "Revenge usually does," Mike said, with a tone of seasoned wisdom. "It satisfies your anger, but it won't heal your wounds." Daniel took a sip of his wine. And what do you think heals wounds? Time, my friend, for new beginnings, Mike replied. But the most important thing is to forgive not for her, but for yourself. Daniel frowned. Forgiveness? After everything she's done? Forgiveness isn't about her behavior being right, Mike explained. Forgiveness is about releasing anger and bitterness, things that eat away at your soul. If you keep holding on to that, the only person who gets hurt is you. Daniel didn't respond, just quietly sipped his wine and pondered Mike's words. Later that night, Daniel returned to his apartment to find a text from Lisa asking if he was free to meet up. They've stayed close since Emma filed for divorce, and while it's mostly as friends, Daniel knows that Lisa probably wants more than friendship. He replied that he wasn't feeling up to it right now and needed a little time alone. Lisa showed understanding and didn't press the issue. Daniel opens the door to the balcony and steps outside for some fresh air. The breeze of the spring night brushed his face, bringing a hint of coolness. He looked out at the lights of the city and pondered where his life would go. Emma's presence stirred emotions he thought had subsided. He did succeed in getting back at her and giving her a taste of the bitter fruits of her betrayal, but it did not bring complete satisfaction and relief as he had expected. Instead, it just reminded him that the scars of the past were still there and needed time to heal. The next morning, Daniel decides to go for a run in hopes of clearing his mind through exercise. He ran along the Charles River, enjoying the quiet and slightly cooler morning air. On the way back, he stopped at a coffee shop to rest. As he sat down to enjoy his coffee, a familiar voice caught his attention. Daniel? Is that you? He looked up and saw Anne, the couple's former mutual friend. Daniel hasn't seen her since the divorce. And it's been a long time, Daniel said, gesturing for her to join him, and sat down with a look of curiosity and concern on her face. You look great. Thanks, Daniel smiled. I'm trying to take care of myself. I heard Emma's moving to Chicago, and said. Daniel nodded. Yes, she came to tell me yesterday, and hesitated, then said, I know what she did, Daniel. I never supported her behavior. In fact, that's why we're estranged. Daniel was surprised. I thought you were still friends. After she, started, I told her it was wrong, and explained. I say she should either end it or be honest and talk to you about it. She got mad at me and said I didn't understand how she felt. We had very little contact after that. Daniel was silent for a moment, digesting the information. I appreciate your honesty, Anne. If there's anything I can do to help, began Anne. Thanks, but I think I need someone to address these issues, Daniel interrupted her gently. They chat briefly about each other's lives, and then Anne has to leave for work. As she said goodbye, she hugged Daniel. You deserve happiness, Daniel, she said. Don't let past hurt stop you from finding it. After Anne left, Daniel sat for a long time, thinking about their conversation. He begins to realize that his plan for revenge may have hurt innocent people, like Anne, who was only doing the right thing. Upon returning home, Daniel receives a call from his mother. Honey, are you okay? She asked, concern in her voice. I'm fine, Mom, Daniel replied. Why do you ask? I heard Emma was leaving town, and I wanted to make sure you were okay. Daniel sighed. Yes, she's moving to Chicago. That's good for me. I know she hurt you, honey, his mother said. But I hope you won't let that pain define your future. You're a good man, Daniel, with a good heart. Don't let this experience change that. I'm trying, Mom, Daniel replied honestly. But sometimes it's hard. I know, honey. Just remember that life moves on, and so should you. After the call ended, Daniel felt a strange calm. His mother always saw through things and reminded him of what was really important. In the evening, Daniel decided to organize some old items. At the bottom of a box, he found his and Emma's wedding album. He hesitated for a moment, then picked up the album and tossed it into the trash without hesitation. Let bygones be bygones, he said to himself, feeling a strange sense of relief. His plan for revenge is well underway, and little by little Emma is losing everything she holds dear: her social standing, her job, her lover, and maybe even her future in the city. Looking at the discarded album, Daniel felt a twinge of satisfaction. The taste of revenge is not sweet, but it's definitely satisfying. Emma chose to betray, and now she must suffer the consequences. The next day, he gets a call from Lisa, who sounds excited. Daniel, have you heard? Emma was forced to resign. The whole office knew about her, and Jason and management had to let her go. Daniel smiled and felt a surge of satisfaction. Really? I guess Jason is safe and sound. Of course, Lisa replied, a hint of sarcasm in her tone. He tells everyone it was Emma who pestered him and that he just accidentally made a mistake. Typical double standard. But you know what's really funny? His wife forgave him and Emma lost everything. It's pathetic, Daniel said, without a hint of sympathy in his voice. It seems she really has no way out now. So, I was thinking, Lisa continued, her voice softening. Maybe we could go away for the weekend? A celebration? Daniel thought for a moment. Lisa has been a great ally in his revenge plans, and he does enjoy her company. Why not? We could go to that new restaurant. Great, Lisa said excitedly. Saturday night at 7. Perfect, Daniel replied. I look forward to it. After hanging up, Daniel leaned back in his chair and felt a surge of triumphant satisfaction. His plan for revenge not only destroys Emma's career, but also completely ruins her social life and reputation. And now he's ready to start a new chapter, and Emma is left to rebuild her life out of the rubble. That's the price of betrayal. A week later, the day came for Emma to leave Boston. Daniel didn't go to see her off, but he got one last text from her. I'm leaving today. I just want to say thank you for showing me the price of betrayal. I will always remember this lesson. Good luck finding happiness, Daniel. But Daniel didn't reply. He doesn't need to. That chapter is over, and it's time to start a new one. That night, Daniel sat alone on the balcony of his apartment, looking at the stars in the night sky. He remembered Mike's words about forgiving not for the sake of others, but for the sake of himself. Maybe it's time to begin the process, not of forgiving Emma for her behavior, but of releasing the anger and pain that has controlled his life for too long. The next morning, Daniel felt a sense of relief that had been missing for a long time. He decided to pay a visit to his parents, whom he hadn't been able to spend proper time with in a long time. His parents live in a small town outside of Boston, where it is quiet and peaceful, far from the hustle and bustle of the city. As his car pulled into the familiar driveway, he saw his parents busy in the garden. Daniel, his mother cried out in surprise, dropping her gardening tools and trotting to meet him. Hey, Mom. Daniel smiled and hugged her. I thought I'd come and see you guys. You're just in time, his father said, joining in the hug. Your mom just made your favorite apple pie. They went inside together and enjoyed coffee and dessert in the sunny kitchen. This simple family time warmed and comforted Daniel. You look much better, dear, his mother commented. The last time I saw you, you looked so anger and pain. I guess I'm learning to let go, Daniel admitted. Revenge didn't bring the satisfaction I was hoping for. His father, a usually quiet man, cleared his throat. You know, son, when your mother and I faced difficulties, I learned an important lesson. Daniel looked at his father with some surprise. He rarely talks about personal feelings. What lesson? Life isn't about getting what you want. It's about appreciating what you have and learning from loss, his father said. You lost a marriage, but you gained wisdom and strength. Don't waste that on anger and bitterness. Daniel felt a deep resonance as he listened to the words. His father, though not a man of many words, was always able to offer the wisest advice when needed. That night, Daniel decided to stay the night. He lay down in his childhood bedroom and looked around at the old photographs and memorabilia, remembering a simpler time. Returning to Boston the next day, Daniel felt a new sense of determination. It's time to let go of the past completely and focus on the future. Back in town, he calls his old friend Michael. They haven't spoken in a long time. Michael warmly invites him to dinner, and they meet at a newly opened restaurant. Look who finally showed up, Michael joked as Daniel arrived, giving him a warm hug. I know. I've been kind of immersed in my own world lately, Daniel admits. Understandable, Michael said. Divorce is not easy. But honestly, you look much better now. They ordered their meals and started talking about their respective lives. Michael was recently promoted and seems excited about the future. So, are you dating right now? Michael asked cautiously. Daniel shook his head. Not yet. I think I need more time. Sure, totally understand, Michael said. But don't lock yourself away for too long. There are a lot of good women who would be lucky to know you. Daniel smiled and nodded. I'll keep that in mind. After dinner, they decided to go to a nearby bar for a drink. As they enter the bar, Daniel notices a woman sitting in the corner, alone. Something about her caught his attention. Maybe it was her quiet confidence, or the look of concentration on her face as she read. Go for it, Michael encouraged, noting Daniel's gaze. Buy her a drink. Daniel hesitated. I'm not sure I'm ready for that. It's not about spending the rest of your life with her. It's just a drink and a conversation, Michael said. Baby steps forward, my friend. Daniel took a deep breath, then walked toward the woman. As he approached, she looked up and gave him a curious smile. Excuse me, Daniel said, sounding more nervous than he expected. Can I buy you a drink? The woman closed the book and surveyed him for a moment, then nodded. Sure, why not? I'm Daniel, he introduced himself, extending his hand. Olivia, she replied, shaking his hand. And just like that, a new chapter began. Not a chapter built on revenge or pain, but a chapter of openness, honesty, and new possibilities. 6 months later, Daniel received a major promotion at the company. His architectural designs have won industry awards, and his career has flourished. The relationship with Lisa is also heating up, and although they decide to take things slowly, everything is moving in a positive direction. His life became more fulfilling and satisfying than ever. Meanwhile, Emma's life is a different story. From a mutual friend, Daniel learns that Emma's new job in Chicago isn't going well. Her reputation had preceded her there, and almost no one wanted a deep friendship or professional relationship with her. She tried a few new relationships, but they all ended in failure as her history of betrayal always became a lingering shadow. One day, Daniel received a postcard from Chicago. It reads in a few short lines. Every day I pay for the choices I make. Your revenge is more complete than you think. I hope you're satisfied. Daniel tore the postcard into pieces and threw it in the trash. He doesn't need Emma's confirmation to know that his revenge has been successful. She's lost everything: her job, her friends, her reputation, even the chance to start over. And he's already won everything. On a sunny weekend in Boston, Daniel and Lisa were walking along the Charles River. Lisa took his arm with a happy smile on her face. You know, Lisa said, I've never seen you so relaxed and happy. Daniel looks at the river in the distance and remembers the past. Emma's betrayal, his calculated revenge, and ultimate victory. I got what I deserved, he said calmly. And she got what she deserved. Lisa nodded and smiled understandingly. So what are your plans for the future? Daniel looked at her with confidence and determination shining in his eyes. Keep winning, he said, then leaned over and kissed her. It was at this moment that Daniel knew he had completely overcome the past. Not only does he succeed in getting back at Emma and making her pay dearly for her betrayal, but he also earns himself a better future. It's not about forgiveness or letting go. It's about victory and conquest. And Emma, no matter where she flees to, can't escape the consequences of her choices. Her new life was much harder than she had imagined, her future much bleaker than she had anticipated. This is the price of betrayal. This is the reality that Emma must always live with. Daniel smiled and wrapped his arm around Lisa's shoulders, welcoming the warm sunlight. Revenge does taste sweet, especially when the victory is so complete. That's the end of today's story. For more captivating tales, hit subscribe and never miss an episode.